All right, we are live. I'm going to wait a few seconds while StreamYard and YouTube talk to each other to get united on a united front. There we go. Looks like we're all syncing up, and that's good. So, all right. Well, welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm your host, Ed Raby, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. This is the edition of Rapid Fire where I answer your burning questions. That can be a question about anything. It's a very open forum. I've definitely, the modding and the strictness of it sometimes is lessened. So we can have anybody ask any question that they want, and I will engage that question. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. I'm going to roll calls kind of a light tonight, but I kind of expected, as in the United States in the northern hemisphere, it gets a little bit warmer. People are going to be out a little bit more. So, let's see. We have Rimmer. He showed up first. I didn't see Fred. No. Fred's usually first, but I haven't seen him today. So, Katie's here. Ann is here. And Martin is here. Outstanding. All the cool people. All right. But yes, so today's burning questions. If nobody has one, I usually come up with my own because I have my own questions about things from time to time. But I've been watching a lot of my fellow YouTubers. I noticed that Mindshift this last week or so finally got around to answering Braxton Hunter's 5 questions for atheists in 2025. And when I was listening to him, I'm like, he's kind of saying the same things that I had a problem with reacting to that video early this year too. I think I did it live, but I didn't. I had my objections of doing a formal one because for a lot of the same reasons. So yeah, it's just like it's a yeah. So, hey, Michael. Yeah, certain burning questions should probably be gone to your doctor. Yes. So, if they're not going to pay you, they're taking advantage of you. I don't understand anybody who does an unpaid internship anymore. What do you expect? These people are going to have to live somehow. How are they going to do that? Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's exploitation, but it's a raw deal. I tell you, remember, I am very, I don't get it anymore. Like you want people to work for you, but you don't want to pay them. I just don't get that. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. See, there are burning questions that require a specialist. Yes, I'm not a specialist. Um, yeah, I work in retail. Even where I work, if you have an assistant manager, what we call coaches in training, they get paid like good money. Okay, so I just don't understand the idea of unpaid work. Okay, that sounds suspiciously like volunteer something. So yeah, I wouldn't be staying on. I would get the hell out of there. Yeah, simple free labor, also known as slavery. Um, oh wait, it's not forced. You're doing it voluntarily. Okay, fair enough. Does anyone run into theists that find atheists odd? All the time. When you listen to apologists, they have that atheists shouldn't exist, atheists are weird, atheists are illogical mindset with the apologists. And a lot of people that I run into that are theists are definitely dealing with those apologists. And so they kind of take on those apologist attitudes. I was um, like, Rhett and Alex O'Connor had this discussion, and like 55 apologists ran to deal with it. And every single one of them I heard react to it so far has gone pre-supper on me. Like, it's like, okay, I've got to prove you wrong. Okay. Um, or I got to prove my atheism is true. I have to prove there is no God. And it's like, I'm not making a claim. But yes, they look at it as oddities because they can't fathom what it's like to have no belief in something. Like it's weird because they already know, they can fathom like their unbelief in all the gods they don't believe in. But yes, they all look at us as we're odd. Um, they just, there's a plenty of theists that find atheists odd, but there's also, I find them odd now too. Like there's some real whack job theists out there, like believe in all kinds of things, and so that are really off so that. Paul not having been real. I don't know. I think one of the good evidences of Paul is like the authenticated writings of Paul. Okay, we know a guy named Paul wrote those, so, and he has a lot of knowledge about the early church that we kind of sort of can verify. But yeah, it's of the apostles, though. It's interesting, of the apostles, the one that comes later on a Damascus road supposedly is the one that actually has the most evidence for him. Okay, like the rest of them are kind of like, yeah, okay, so yeah, but there's not a lot of evidence for the other 12 apostles. There's less. Paul has more evidence for him than anybody else, which kind of tells me, if I look at the real way that Christianity started, I would say, you had somebody having a very deep experience, like a resurrection experience. I think the reason Peter is a central figure in Christianity is a guy named Peter had this experience of seeing Jesus alive after dead, but whether that's a personal hallucination or something else, I think is more likely, because that actually happens quite often, even today. So, and then Paul comes along later, takes this simple cult and adds a whole bunch of elements to it. The prophetic nature of Jesus's prophecies fails. And so then you have a whole bunch of people using Peter and Paul's name later to create the religion we know as Christianity today. So that's a far more likely scenario to me. Argue unpaid more than his job is a high skill cap. Yeah, but even then, you should at least, provide room and board so the person doesn't have to worry about that. I don't know. He purifies by fire, if you get the analogy. No, the reason he's a trickster god, okay, is the way he tries to get at the vegetables. He tries to sneak up on them so they don't know what's happening. He's very vampiric in that respect. Like vampires live in the night and sneak around. And as a bunny, that's kind of the way rabbits operate, by the way. I've always been suspicious of rabbits. So having raised some when I was younger as a kid with my dad. So, but rabbits, I think they're cute design to humans, and the fact that they do come out at night, like there is some nocturnal rabbit behavior, especially early in the evening and early in the morning. So yeah, so there's that. But I don't know. Fangs is always engaged in all that. So hey, Patriot government. Let's see. If the goal of rehab is to get normal, okay. I don't know. I don't know. Paul's kind of of all the apostles, Paul probably has the most evidence for his existence. So, but historians always speak in probabilistic terms because is the evidence good or is the evidence bad or scanty? And Paul, of all the apostles, including the 12, seems to have the most proof of his existence because he only has these 7 letters that we can authenticate. So there's a reason we authenticated them. So, yeah, I mean, there's a good debate, Patriot, that Paul was mentally ill. Like he's a mystic for sure. If you read his writings and you get past the mystical nonsense, yeah, he's a little bit crazy. Okay, to put it in a more vernacular term, but yes, he has a thing. So, oh, by the way, Kyle, welcome. I try to welcome everybody when I see them. Azo, good to see you, man. Skeptically pissed. I'm doing fine. I don't know how the rest of the chat is doing. So, Pauline authentic also seems to rest upon people wanting him to be great or real or something. Yeah, that's pretty much true of all religious figures, though. Everybody wants Jesus to be a true religious historical figure, and so they're willing to accept authenticity that in other historical contexts wouldn't be accepted. That's why there's a debate about Jesus's historical existence, because the evidence we have for his existence is 4 books that have questionable origins. Okay, and there's a lot of other gospels that you could probably look at for historical authenticity for Jesus. The problem is they have the same problems. A lot of times they're anonymously written. We don't know where the stories came from. Even if we knew who the authors were, we still wouldn't know where the stories came from. Okay, so and who verified them. Yeah, so 19 months of insanity. But thank you so much, Asso. I appreciate you. I really do. Peter and Paul seem different. I honestly think Paul was some kind of grifter who pretended to have a vision so he could take over the whole cult. You know, Pete, and welcome, but Pete, that's actually somebody I believe had, I can't remember who, but somebody actually theorized that Paul saw an opportunity in taking over the cult. Though he makes a lot of claims like I was beat up for this, I was stoned for this and left for dead and all this other stuff. But you got to remember, those are all stories written. Somebody's making the claim that those things happened. Did those things actually happen? So either he was a grifter who did take over the cult, or he was a sincere believer, which probably makes him a little bit worse, who basically also took over the cult because he didn't feel it was going in the right direction. So it's like either way, you have a problem. But and Paul always reminds me of the Christian but not religious crowd. Without the religion, there wouldn't be any Christian. Yeah, he and many others kind of do that, don't they? Like, I'm a Christian. I follow Christianity. I follow Christ, but I'm not religious. And it's like, dude, you're still being religious. Okay, so it's like they have obvious things about them, Michael, and about their belief system, but they want to deny that those things exist in their own personal life. I'm not prejudiced against people, and I'm not this and I'm not that, but you're literally, most of the world is going to hell and has gone to hell based on your theology. How, and some never having heard the gospel. Oh, well, I'll be judged by what we know. Well, then why tell them the damn gospel? Okay, like, don't do that. Oh, problem with Paul is that the details of life are sketchy, while there are works that some guy may have composed. Yes, and that is the problem. But somebody wrote the book, so why don't we call him Paul? And especially considering that at the top of those books, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, is written. So it's like, and that's original to the original writing. So, and we have in those cases no reason to doubt that. Like, there's no good evidence hard against that that's true. So yeah, don't get me wrong. Remember, the existence of all the apostles and all that stuff is sketchy. It's not as sketchy as, say, the patriarchs of the Old Testament, which are complete probably fabrication and mythology. Certainly, Joseph being in Egypt as a vizier of the king of Pharaoh, that's complete made up bullshit. Okay, so it's like there's no evidence for any of that. And so, but where we have the New Testament, we have some characters that, yeah, there was somebody at the center of the beginning of the cult of Christianity. Okay, there was somebody who came up with the idea and ran with it. And I don't have any reason to doubt that maybe it was a guy named Paul. Okay. So it's a mundane claim compared to like the miracle claims. So, anyone's been talked about History Channel and Derek Lambert's channel. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Skepticism about every biblical character is pretty common. So, and the early Christians are no exception. Okay. Because the real problem is the Gospels themselves are anonymous. And where they get the stories inside the Gospels is anonymous. They don't cite their sources, so to speak. And so there's no proof that these are eyewitnesses. There's none of that. Okay. So it's like, it makes it really difficult. And then you throw in Paul on top of it, because the book of Acts is a standalone. It's unlike the Gospels. Like we have 4 stories. Yes, you have 4 stories. And with the book of Acts, you only have 1 story of the early church. So there's that. Let's say I wouldn't be surprised if Paul was actually just a scribe working for the Romans who used to all kinds of literature. That's the thing. I think what we have is a combination of like some real people with a real, prophetic guy. I kind of agree with Christopher Hitchens. The amount of deception that's used to cover up the inconsistencies of the Jesus story probably is indication that Jesus actually might have existed, but that's the only one. The rest of it is like it's sketchy, and the same is true with Paul. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Christian religion has its origins somewhere, and I have no reason to doubt like Peter and Paul made it up. Okay, so Peter, Paul, and Mary. So you have that. So Paul may have had hallucination. His horse slammed him to the ground. Traumatic brain injuries can really mess a person from miles. Yeah, and that's one of the other theories about Paul is that he was there's a lot of trauma from persecuting the church, if that's even true. There's a whole bunch of things that are just not verified in the gospel accounts and Acts. Like that's the biggest problem Christianity has. It has this absolute lack of verification outside of the supposed holy text. And that's a problem. Okay. And that's pretty true of a lot of religions. A lot of religions make a lot of historical claims, but when you look at actual historical proof outside of their claims, there's just not a lot there. So, yeah, Muhammad isn't much like the historical amount. I mean, it's very possible, like Paul was very much about, creating his own image, the whole image of I used to persecute the church, but now I'm true. How many apologists have we seen that say, I used to be an atheist? Okay, why does that give them clout? Well, it gives them clout because I used to not believe in this and I was a skeptic and now I believe in it. Saturday night at the Atheist, they were dealing with a guy who's a scientist who used to be an atheist and now I believe in God. And like, dude, you're a physicist and a chemist, it's like, you should know better. But it's like, it's that imagery from Paul all the way to the latest apologist that does it, that I used to be a persecutor / skeptic of the church and now I believe, gives you a lot of authority because, if this guy who used to be a skeptic, now switches to the other side, then that must be true. Now I get that too, because, I used to be a believer. Now I'm an atheist and like, oh, well, you just, it's like, no, there's a switch side mentality. Well, that doesn't prove anything. Okay. And even me switching to be an atheist doesn't really prove anything, but it is a notable switch when you used to be so deep into it. Why would you change? And people are curious about that. What proves it wrong to me is the evidence. Okay, the reason I left the faith was there's just a lack of evidence for Christianity being true, and there's some things that speak against it. So, Hey, Ashera. Yeah, he could have had a frontal lobe, absolutely. I also think that, I think what you have with Paul is there are people that are very zealot for faith. Okay. There are people that have that personality that they got to have a cause. Okay. And it makes the story that he was a persecutor of the church and then later a real zealot for the thing he persecuted even more true to me, because if you have the kind of personality that needs a crusade all the time, then he fits the bill. Okay. So that comment combined with maybe some traumatic experiences, guilt associated with persecuting innocent people, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, you could definitely see Paul being a real person. You know, the book of Acts isn't written by Paul, so it doesn't claim to be. So we have this account, this supposed historical account of Paul, and then we have Paul's own writings, and they don't always mesh. So there's some pretty big contradictions, as I recall. I haven't studied that in a while, so off the top of my head, but I know there's some pretty big contradictions between Paul's account of his early ministry and Acts. So, see, I was discussing Matthew 5:17. Got my first words don't mean words, Christian. Welcome to the club. While debating them, I realized I've never been this calm and confident in my debating. Thank you, skeptic community. All right, well, yeah, you're welcome. All of us will give you that. But the words don't mean words. It's like, that's not what it means. Yeah, it is. I think they go to that because they don't really have another option. You've cornered them and they don't have an option other than to say, well, that's not what that means. That's not what that word means. But they won't accept it when I tell them like theory doesn't mean the same in normal conversation as it does to a scientist. They won't accept that at all. Okay, no, it's a theory. It's just an educated guess. No, evolution is granted the title of theory for good reasons. So scientific definition, but they won't accept that, but and they'll openly acknowledge it, that words have other definitions when it suits their cause, but not their own. I think Paul did too. The thing about growing up in the ancient world, to us modern people, I think it would be a little bit horrifying. Like I remember when I first played Darkest Dungeon, I went and looked up the developers and what their theory was behind it. And one of the guys says it would be absolutely horrifying to be an adventurer. Like if you really put it in a psychological context, going into places and killing monsters and watching your friends be ripped apart might be psychologically traumatizing. And in the ancient world, there's a lot of stuff like that happens. There's a lot of brutality. Okay. Slavery is everywhere. The treatment of slaves is pretty brutal. You've got all kinds of horrible things happening that people can't do anything about. And I can imagine a lot of mental health issues existed in a lot of people. And I don't think Paul was any exception, but Paul could have been also dealing with guilt trauma. He's feeling guilty about stuff. And then he has this traumatic experience that completely changes his course. Yeah, it's perfectly believable other than the miracle part and that he actually saw Jesus. So L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah, it's possible. Frontal lobe epilepsy. Yeah, it's possible. The patriarchs are as real as Captain Caveman. That's pretty good analogies. Yeah, I've told people I think the first 6 books of the Bible, the supposed books of Moses and Joshua, are complete fiction. Okay, they were written like 600, 700 years after the fact, supposedly. So these people are, the closer you get to the actual writing of the Old Testament, which is, we'll just roughly say 600 BCE, closer you get to that, the more historically accurate they get. But the farther back in time they get, the more fanciful they get. And that's actually pretty typical of ancient writings because, like even the Norse, they trace their ancestry back to certain characters. And then they all trace it back to Odin, so the Allfather. So it's like at some point we're getting more and more fanciful in our view of the past. And the Old Testament is no exception to that. So just another, I'm not sure it really matters. No, it doesn't, but it's fun to speculate about because And you got to understand, when I talk about Paul being a lunatic mystic, so to speak, theists lose their shit about that. Like, no, he was touched by God, and and it's like, no, dude, I can easily see mental illness in the guy. I can read his writings and see mental illness. Like, he has a delusional view of reality in a lot of respects, and he's flat out wrong several times. It's like, eh, I agree. The Norse mythology is much more fun and more realistic, more human, to be honest. And that's why I like it better. So, oh, I was just hearing about the Seventh Day Adventists today. I was watching Rationality Rules, this latest video about Rhett and some apologist going after Rhett and his interview with Alex O'Connor, and it's like they talked about the fact that the JWs and Seventh Day Adventists and many others have revised. Every time they have a failed prophecy, they revise it. And Ellen White was no exception to that. Yeah, definitely had epilepsy, possibly as a kid, getting hit a rock with a head. I can see that. Let's see. Trollish debate with someone who couldn't accept reading the Bible could lead to skepticism. Um, I think if you're deep into the faith, that's an argument that really bothers you. And so you're going to put up a lot of defensive mechanisms, Martin, about that. Like when I used to get that accusation when I was a theist, and I'm like, no, I'm skeptical of the Bible and I read it with a skeptical mind and I still believe. And I think you put up a lot of defensive mechanisms, psychologically speaking, when atheists accuse you of something. So you have to be mindful of that. Okay. Like if people believe, they're going to come up with a lot of weird reasons to still believe. They're all going to be pretty much emotionally based. It's why I say when you talk to believers, the intellectual side, they probably already acknowledge like their Bible has problems, that the belief in God has problems, et cetera, et cetera. But they have an emotional attachment to it. So it's like you have to deal with the emotional attachment, and you're probably seeing some of the effects there because they can't accept. To them, reading the Bible leads to faith, not skepticism. That's the dogma, that's the doctrine. That's why they tell people to have devotions, because it'll build your faith. Well, you're saying something completely the other way from that, and they're not going to accept that on an emotional level at first. So not feeding Reddit. Okay, fair enough. Let's see. Given Paul's dislike of women, I wonder if he was an incel or a closet gay. Possible. Um, he. I think in First Corinthians, if we take that as authentic writing of Paul, he talks about he wishes people remained as he was, and he was basically single and celibate, dedicating himself to the work of God. But he says, if you're going to have lust problems, you might as well get married so you don't have the lust problem. And it's like, or you could just bang each other and and be good. But he doesn't have that. He has a very negative view of sex in general. So I'm not going to dismiss that one. Okay, I'm not. He comes down pretty hard on homosexuals too, which every time I hear a preacher coming down on homosexuals or adultery or something, I'm waiting. I just wait a couple of months and they'll get caught doing it. It's so common now that like big time mega church pastors, not on the ones that are on TV, will get caught in an affair, or some pastor over here gets, he ends up being gay, and yeah, so it's like it's not unlike it. Given our understandings of modern psychology, I think you have a valid point. Like that, I honestly, I mean, I did the red flag thing with Jesus. What are the red flags with Paul? Okay, chat, go. What are the red flags of dating Paul? If you had any mind on dating Paul, what would be the red flags to get rid of him? And I think that's going to be a long list. so, so there's that. Oh, hey, Triple E, good to see you. Sienna's. As far as I'm aware, Christians cults go back to about 200 BC and we're in Greece. Romans would have been aware of them. Romans need to conquer those pesky Jews, and voila. Yes, I could see where the Romans could use this as a tactic. It's maybe why they created. You could create Christianity as the the Roman Empire did suffer from the fact that it allowed a lot of religions to do that, to do what they wanted, and they didn't have a unified religion, and it often led to a lot of problems. So Christianity would have fit that bill. Christianity is a very good universal religion because of the way it's worked. And yeah, I could see that being a part of a design. I could see that. It still works. So yeah, the 7-day Adventists always have predictions about when the world's going to end. There's always something, and they always miss, and then they have to reevaluate. So, hey, Kyle, good to see you. Glad you're here. Let's see. I've said it before. Paul being doesn't make sense. He had to do anything with the Pharisees. They hardly had enough people to keep the people inside the walls of Jerusalem in line. Yes, one of the things about Paul being a Pharisee that is problematic, and I actually brought that up. Like, the Pharisees are a sect of the Jewish leaders, and most of the Jewish leaders were in Jerusalem. So him being in Tarsus, you make a valid point. It's like they tended to pick people that lived in Jerusalem because they needed them there. And so Paul may have been from Tarsus originally and moved to Jerusalem. So that's a possibility. But yeah, the Pharisees and Sadducees were everywhere in the Jewish world. They were just two sects. It's like, having Presbyterians and Catholics. It's like they were two sides of the same coin, basically. So hey, Hurricane, salute back. One thing's for sure, Bird is the word. I actually listened to that song this week. It's one of the best songs ever. Those guys were crazy at a time when the world needed crazy, I think. When they say deny what the Bible clearly says, they prove their inconsistency. Yes. It's a hard thing to watch theists struggle. It really is. Yeah, gravity is definitely as true as evolution is. Its theory level is different. Yeah, there's a lot of bullying in church, and that's why a lot of people stay in the church, is they're afraid to leave. To be fair. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. I can see where abnormal brain function would lead to religious belief, because if your brain's constantly short circuiting, religion is a great way to fill the gaps, so to speak. It kind of zips around in your head and that sort of thing, and so it's kind of like, yeah. So I can see it, but I also, I don't know. I can also see people that are very intelligent also, wanting to be more part of a community and having the emotional need for a community guide that too. So I think a lot of religious leaders and religious prophets definitely have the weirdo, whatever brain function. But yeah, I just don't, it's not always true. Let's see, we got a little gremlin. Hey. Yes, the word hypothesis and theory often get mixed, and they don't know the difference. When they use the word theory, it's often what they should use is the word hypothesis instead. And but evolution long graduated from being a hypothesis to being a theory, so it's been a while. So look at the Sumerian king list with them living for tens of, yeah. So Sumerian kings had that notion too. Thousands of altar boys have been touched by God. Okay, fair enough. I will say that diddling with kids is a good way to prove something is really shady. Boy, I read her book from an old 1920s book called The Confusion of Tongues. I learned a lot of the homespun American religions. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of religions that have, and you really think about it, a lot of these came during the pioneer days, like when people were heading west and you could get away from it all and really feel like you were alone and could come up with your own shit. Um, I remember, when I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2 a lot, and I may go back to that again this weekend because I really love the story. Um, I remember thinking, at one point, man, if you were somebody that was moving out west, you could literally move someplace where you would not see another human being and you could get all kinds of revelations. And when you see that activity in America, you also see the rise of JWs, and Mormonism is in that, and a whole bunch of, like, we can expand and be whatever we want. Okay, there's a lot of autonomy, you know, granted, and so you could end up being anything you want. I could see it. And there's like a cult in Red Dead Redemption, that worships turtles, and I could absolutely, like, that's one of the most realistic things I could see in the game. So, oh, how annoyed I'd be if I actually wasted any time reading the Bible. Knowing about it is bad enough. I get it. I spent a lot of time reading the Bible and studying it, and that's kind of why I became an atheist, because the more I studied what proof there is. So yeah, there's that. Fusion, not combustion. So God is not the anti of combustion. Oh boy, you guys go places in chat that I would not. But I let you. It's fun. Oh, Alex, good to see you. All right, little gremlin. I'm lost on this one. Um, I would have to claim ignorance, and I'm going to say I have no idea what you're talking about. Which I'm assuming this is either from some form of entertainment or a game. So my knowledge of such things, there's so much stuff out there that I just don't know anymore, and it's all cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing on anybody's fandom, but I just, like, I find new stuff all the time. I'm glad I live in the world that I do. There's plenty of things for my autistic brain to deep dive these days. So I would find Paul too needy and codependent. See, I told you, red flags of dating Paul. Paul the Apostle. Why wouldn't you date him? What's the red flags of Paul? I'm still waiting, but that's Anne Marie. That's probably valid. Very needy guy, guilt driven, codependent with his God. I don't know, cult leader. Might be a bad idea. Bart Herman. Bart B. Herman. Is that Bart Ehrman? Probably. Bart Ehrman is a historical scholar, and he actually follows historical methodology, so he's probably has a better chance of being right than anybody. That's one thing that people don't realize about history, is you're always dealing with probabilities. Like, Bart Ehrman deals with probabilities, so, like, he doesn't dismiss the possibility of Jesus, but he also doesn't dismiss the possibility that he might not have existed. So, but yeah, I as an atheist, I reject the idea of authority and appealing to authority, but Bart's got some good stuff. So, on occasion. Uh, yes, I do agree with a lot Bart Ehrman says. Yes, I do agree with him. I also have some scholarly stuff that I've done myself that I can, yeah, head nod with him. Yeah, that's kind of the way it looks to me too. Like, I'm wondering what a normal brain is too. I'm sure I don't have one. I know that they've concocted what a healthy normal brain should function like. I'm sure, and probably nobody fits the bill. It's just, this guy's got this thing that seems to work right. But yeah, I mean, and yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah, Mormonism definitely came from that era. That's what's fascinating about the Wild West, Old West expansionist time, is it's also a time when a whole bunch of American religious cults just pop up everywhere. And I think it's because you get all this weird vibe of going across the Western landscape, seeing no other human beings. And so you start thinking you see all kinds of things. I can't imagine that kind of isolation wouldn't lead to hallucinogenic experiences just in and of itself. So, and they were also finding things like, peyote and a few other things. So, um, I mean, there's no regulation on how much you can drink. There's no, there's all kinds of controlled substances that were in the wild back then. So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that could have happened. So, one of the first counselors I ever had was a Shaker. Yes, my mother actually visited a Shaker village when she traveled somewhere. I can't remember, but the Shakers are kind of a weird thing. Like, they didn't believe in marriage and having children because they thought the world was going to end. They had some weird, very Pentecostal like experiences. That's why they were called Shakers. Very simple lifestyle. They kept the men and women separate, and they would adopt children, okay, that were orphans, and introduce them to the religion. So it's a weird little. If you want a deep dive of an interesting religious group, there are them. I think there's still one or two Shakers still left alive, but I'm not sure. So, okay, there we go. I don't know. I'd have to know the characters really well before I'd make an assessment on their abilities to fight each other. So, and most of the 19th century come out of the burned over district in New York. People that air would always fell for them. Hence, the air was burned over. Yes. That effect, Anne Marie, is actually in a lot of ministries, even in the modern day. Like Billy Graham is an interesting study now in evangelism that obviously failed because he, the amount of conversion cards and people coming to the altar as crusades is like more than the populations of some cities. And so these people got saved over and over and over again. Okay, so it's not that. Hey, Iron, you asked a question about Mark. I'm going to hold off on that, Iron, that you asked in the comments a couple days ago, because I'm actually, the next questionable witnesses, I'm actually going to be talking about Mark, the gospel, and why I have problems with it. So I want to hold off and give that answer hopefully in a few days. So, yes, the Millerites have terrible backup singers. Hi, Earl. Good to see you. As always, fashionably late. Okay, that's all right. Oh, I think Pete, cranky elder God, would agree with you on that. He's not here tonight, but I'm sure he's doing cranky elder God things. So, but yes, he's had this discussion on brains. It doesn't really matter if they believe in him or not. They all taste the same. Yeah, I have had that problem with Bart because I'm like, can you give me the evidence for the historicity of Jesus? Because I'm not seeing it either. I kind of ride the fence because I think it's best to be like, if somebody presented to me actual evidence that a historical Jesus of Nazareth existed, I wouldn't be surprised. At the same time, I don't think he did all the crap, and he certainly didn't rise from the dead. I think that's all later mythology. So, but yeah, I've often been disappointed with Erdman on that particular issue. On a lot of other issues, not so much. But it's like, what historical evidence are we talking about here? Because if you say the gospel's existence and all these other gospels' existence writing about him, I can see how together that would constitute like a poor to mid-level historical evidence that somebody existed. I mean, somebody's existence is a pretty mundane claim. You don't need a lot of evidence for it, but still, I'm that is one issue where I do get disappointed with him, because he's not as definitive there as he is with a lot of other historical issues in the Bible. Bill Cipher. Hold on. I've heard that name, and I'm trying to remember. Okay. Gravity Falls. I don't know if I've watched Gravity Falls. I don't think I have. Power and Scope and Influence. I don't know. Obviously not influencing on me, because I'm having struggles to remember who he is. Let's see. The Millerites came from the teachings of William Miller and his 2 end of the world predictions on White and the SDA Church. Okay. Yeah, I can see it's all that era and the era that follows of it. We have all these religious claims from America. Yeah, I know he believes that, or Ehrman believes that Jesus existed. Okay. That, the religion didn't come out of nowhere. He uses kind of like a logical, historical backtracking kind of thing. But I've always wondered what his evidence for actual Jesus's existence is, because outside the Gospels, you don't find very much. So, yeah, there's not a lot there, and it's usually pretty poor. So, just boring Catholics. No, good to see you, Jack. The Jews didn't have it, the Christians don't have it, none of it from that time. And that's my problem with it. And that's why I say, if Jesus is discovered to have never existed, I wouldn't be surprised. If he's discovered to have existed with different evidence, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think the real thing is you have to deal with believers, and believers do have that. Okay. And so you have to kind of talk to them about, they believe that Jesus has existed. So you have to talk with them at that level to talk with them. And I often concede, okay, let's say Jesus did exist in a discussion with a theist. Well, concede he existed. Did he do all this other stuff? No, there's no evidence for that. Okay. So, I go back to, I did a series a long time ago about can spiritual discipline still be a benefit to an atheist? And you can nitpick a few little ideas out of that. But a lot of the problem with spiritual disciplines is to isolate the person and put them in a place where you can, quote unquote, hear from God. But what you often end up with is hearing a lot of weird shit. So you come up with some weird ideas. When you're isolated away from community, I think that's a problem. Sometimes that's one of the problems that can develop. So, yes. Yeah, historical consent is that a person in the Bible is based on one or more multiple historical preachers. I suppose that's where Erdman is at. Yeah, I think he's kind of there. Yes, thinking hallucinations is real is the problem. It's okay. I'm going to get to that. I have my bashing on the Gospel of Mark to do. In fact, I'm going to literally just dedicate a video to Mark and the other Gospels and why I don't think they're historical in questionable witnesses. And so I'll talk more about that in detail. But like you asked a question about the longer ending in Mark and how does that help biblical reliability? It doesn't. It undercuts it. Okay. I think the thing about that comment that really bothered me the most is the guy thinks that the canon is secure. No, it's not. It's never been secure. Okay. It's only secure in the mind of believers. So it's like you have to really jump through a lot of epistemological hoops to do that. To say that that's secure. I don't know. We talk about random stuff, Triple E. You know that. I don't know what we're talking about now. I've talked about everything from anime to, hardcore, social issues and everything in between. So I don't want to put anime on a down. I actually like some of it, but I don't know. And let's see, my oldest cousin is a certified genius. He's a hardcore Christian too. He told me to deal with the things he did and witnessed in Afghanistan. For him, it's a cope. Yes, religion is a cope for a lot of people. Okay, it helps them make sense of the world in some way so that their brain doesn't experience as much trauma. I think they would be better off going to get therapy to do that than just coping with it. It's what you've told me. You could substitute Christianity for he smokes dope or drinks alcohol or has a lot of sex or watches a lot of porn, or it's like anything that gets past the emotions of that, he could insert the above. Okay, so it's like it's that kind of thing. The fact that he fell on religion is unfortunate, but very normal. So Abby normal. See, the fact that you made a Young Frankenstein reference, Coyote, makes me like you even more. I often test people and whether I'm going to get along with them by Young Frankenstein references. So it's been a while since I watched the movie, though. I should probably do that. Yeah, I see. That's the problem. When I look at the historical development of Christianity, what I see is a failed apocalyptic movement that altered the game successfully enough to convince a lot of other people to the present day. Like, okay, Jesus dies, his followers die, and that wasn't supposed to happen according to the prediction that Jesus made, if we could even verify that. And so once that apocalyptic stage of the movement ended, they had to do something to keep the movement alive, because I think a lot of people had, they were getting money for this, they were doing that, all that jazz. So religions have their profitability for the people that are in leadership and who practice them in some cases. So it's like, yeah, I can see it. Yeah, thank heaven for little differences. I agree with you there, Jock. We had this discussion when I did my autism stream, and I think Earl made mention of it, and me too, that the autism is kind of part of who I am, and I wouldn't want to. On one hand, it's a pain in the ass to deal with sometimes, but on the other hand, I wouldn't be me without it. So there's that anomaly. That's better. There you go. Hey, so thanks. Yeah, we do have a goal in chat this week. If I get to 10 super chats, I have one more hat to reveal that I still haven't revealed. And then if I get to 15 super chats this week, I'm going to post the StreamYard link on Saturday. And so you can join me inside StreamYard if you want. But I always want to get paid for that experience for me. He left his butt print. That is a great way to put it. But the thing with butt prints is, how do you distinguish? Is it like a fingerprint where you can absolutely distinguish one butt from another? It's all right, Bill. I don't mind theists coming here and talking. And I think you were here with the Pope episode that I did on Saturday. I actually like some aspects of this Pope as far as his humanity, but I also think he leads a really bad organization and one that has exploited people. So thanks for stopping by and saying that, though. But I put up with you. Seem to be a decent sort. So we've covered a lot of ground and didn't share recipes yet. So there's that. See, the canon's a problem. Hey, there's a good idea in this book. Origen got into the Church Fathers Club, not into reincarnation, but I get what you're getting at. But yeah, the canonization of Scripture. Oh my God! Talk about a group of men that got together and created Holy Scripture that would advance their political agenda against like Gnostics and other people. And then you have the early church using all that to like literally kill people that disagreed with them. Yeah, that's a problem. So If I consider the Book of Bill to be canon, Bill's cipher uses the dimensional rift that connects the multiverse to the nightmare realm, which is said to be 13 dimensional. Well, that would be an incredible influence on the world. I would grant you that if it happened. So, wait, where are you going? I was going to make espresso. Hey, Dave. Good to see you, man. Well, thank you, Left-Handed Jedi. I appreciate that. All right, that's 2. So 2 for the week. So thank you very much. I appreciate the support. I try to do questions today and therapy on Thursday and have a good time on Saturday. And I'm hoping to get some videos out here shortly. I've had to rework how I'm doing reaction videos because I think people have changed with them. I saw Mindshift's reaction to Hunter's 5 questions in 2025, and I'm like, I meant to do an actual full reaction to that. I think I did it live, but I actually meant to make a video out of that because videos do better with ad revenue when you only have 12 minutes instead of an hour and a half. So it's, I had the same objections though, so to doing it. So yes, I'm trying to get back to that, and it's usually a psychological issue that feeds my procrastination. So, and I got to figure out what it is, and I usually do eventually. Okay, actually in forensics, the finger, foot, and ear prints that seem to be unique. Butts are okay. All right. So Jesus leaving his butt prints over everything doesn't prove a damn thing. Fair enough. So, other than somebody, was, doing a prophecy precursor or putting your butt on the fax machine or the copier, right? The Xerox machine. What is our scripture going to be and what is canon? Well, we aren't going to be fair about this. The one who makes the most threats wins. Yes, that's probably exactly what. Fortunately for us, Bill isn't real. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, because Little Grandma, that sounds like a really awful universe, to be fair. But maybe a realistic one when you consider what superpowers do. Yes, Christianity's original pyramid scheme, I would agree with that. I think when you look at any religion, there's always a benefit for the followers. And it's not really sure sometimes what it is, other than community sometimes. So there's always something. Yeah, I was kind of feeling he's no longer a cipher for me. That's good. I do have a question about how to deal with somebody with autism, someone who is actually destroying things between us, how to get them to understand it. When you find out, let me know. I have my own problems getting my own family to understand autism. For instance, let me give you a simple for instance. I have telephone anxiety. Like I literally have to debate with myself about the necessity of making a phone call for half an hour before I'll make one. And so that includes my kids, my mom, everybody. I'd rather meet in person because then I can gin myself up. I can get ready and mentally prepared for that. Or I'd rather text because text and writing is a more accepted form. But I hate initiating like social interaction. It's not that I don't want my kids to be called and connect with them. It's just I have this hour-long battle every time I call them. And I try to get them to understand that. And they just think it's weird, okay, that somebody just can't pick up a phone and call. And no matter how much I fight with that, they just don't understand it. I think the real problem with autism is we still have a lot of people like, RFK Jr. spreading misinformation and being in positions of power, spreading misinformation that causes people to doubt this stuff. And so they don't really want to understand it because they're not even sure it's real because of all the multiple different things. And it really pisses me off. But at the same time, I understand the frustration because I'm not neuronormal. Like I get that at work too. I think a lot of people think I'm an asshole because I just don't emotionally react to certain situations, and they're all upset, and I'm like, whatever, yeah, and the masking takes over and all that shit, and I'm the calmest person in the room, and they think that's weird. So yeah, if you ever figure this out to a certain extent, Bren, let me know because I need help too there. It's something I think all of us autistic people struggle with is getting people to understand us. Um, the idea that somebody's different isn't a foreign concept, but the idea of how this works is difficult for them to get. But I've tried, trust me. Oh, okay. So let's see. Their actions in person is the thing killing things, and they do not understand that their overly polite all the time stuff is the thing making no connection. Yes. I think that's one thing I deal with too, is everybody's really polite to me, thinking that they're going to butter me up and get me to open up, but that's not the way my brain works, and they don't understand that. So yeah, I have a trouble answering the phone. If you text me, I'm there. If you message me on Messenger, I'm there. Call me or stuff like that, and yeah, I very rarely answer my phone. It frustrates my family and friends to no end because I don't answer the phone. So yes. Yeah, I don't know. I hope not. The problem is for him is that the international scientific community that's been studying autism now for what, a couple decades has come to the conclusion that it's genetic, and his understanding of statistics is really bad. That's his problem. Like we see all these new diagnoses. Yeah, because our diagnostic tools got better, dumbass. You know, it's like he doesn't seem to realize that there's multiple reasons that the rise of autistic diagnosis could be. He thinks, oh, there's some environmental factor that's getting worse. And it's like, no, we're just getting really good at diagnosing it. Okay, we're now beginning to understand it better. And he just doesn't want to do that. So you just hope you're just an asshole. Yeah, no. I don't know. Swam some pretty nasty, well known promotional videos, though. Okay. But yeah, my problem with communicating autism to others and how they should treat me is I'm not always sure myself. Okay. I just have this struggle. Like that telephone example is just one example of how to deal with me. Like the other thing you should do with autistic people is not assume they don't. It's too easy to assume that we don't have emotions, that our feelings don't get hurt. Okay. My feelings get hurt all the time. It's just I don't have any way of expressing that to neuronormal people, whatever that is, in a way that they will understand it. Okay, I express my emotions in different ways than they do, and that's the problem. So I'm good at math and logic. Some things work out for me. There you go. All right. I don't do well in groups. We are at a group thing. I ask them to be one on one. They make a scene. I try to be nice to them, but like total stranger. Yeah, I see that because I don't like group activities either. And I'm on a team, but I like the nights better when I'm off on my own doing my work by myself than working with a team. I also have some problems lately of like everybody second guesses me. Okay, because I don't emotionally express myself, I think is the reason. And it's really sad because my employer just had Autistic Awareness Month last month, and apparently nobody figured this out yet. Okay. So I think next year I'm going to have to like actively be a part of that Autistic Awareness Month so people get their head out of their ass. But then I don't really want to do that either. So, oh, yeah. I hate making telephone calls and I hate answering the phone. Okay. It's an emotionally anxiety inducing thing to the point that I don't do it. It gives me so much anxiety that I literally don't do it. And I find that that's actually fairly normal among autistic people. It's more normal than I thought. And then when I'm talking to my therapist about it, she's like, "Yeah, people need to get over it." Okay, because she says I don't see autistic people changing that anxiety. I don't see. She says it's very common in her dealings, and she was like, and I think people need to realize, okay, that's not the way to communicate to my loved one through the phone. Okay, I've either got to meet with them in person or I got to text them or something like that where they will respond. And respecting the way people respond, okay, is something that she advocates for, and I've tried to communicate that to my people, my friends and family. So, and I have to say this. This is a little bit off topic, but as far as friendship goes, it's been interesting. Like when I tell my deconversion story, I tell you that my Facebook friends list from almost 400 to like 150 some the moment I left being the minister and all that stuff. I have to say, I think I'm almost to 300 again, and a lot of atheists are the ones that are my friends now. So I don't know. The chat probably is getting alarming to some of my other friends that are still theists, but there we go. The random knock on the door is anxiety inducing, Coyote. I think what it has to do with is it's that initiating of social contact is very anxiety inducing to me. And so no matter how much that happens, the reason a text works is it's kind of socially acceptable to ignore a text until you can answer it properly. That's still a little bit socially acceptable. Whereas knocking on the door, doing a phone call, it's still not socially acceptable to do that. So it induces anxiety. So, but yeah, knock at the door that just comes up, I immediately go, oh shit, who's that? Okay. And then I have to sit here for a couple seconds while I better go answer it because it might be the landlord. It might be somebody important talking about something. They have street repairs on my street all the time. So it's like, they'd sometimes tell me that that's going to rather fart in public. And I've got, yeah, I mean, I get you. I get you, Earl. Yeah, I get a lot of comments whenever I do those kind of videos. I I also I get comments in those. I tend to get a different crowd than gathers here at a stream, and that's why I need to get back to video content because you have to make a channel that appeals to a broader audience, and to do that, you have to do different styles of media. That's why I think like Durante Lamar does so well. Is he's got shorts, he's got videos, he does live chat. He does a multitude of things, and he used to be way behind me. Like I remember when he first started, and now he's like 5 times the size as I am, and it's because he does multiple platforms and he's very charismatic. So, and I'm not sure I have that kind of sarcastic charisma that'll make fun of you. So, yeah. The telephone is an exceptionally rude device. Yes, I would agree with that assessment. Yes. You live in the MAGA heartland. I live in Western Michigan, so I feel you. I The weird part about where I live, though, Michiganders are weird because I think on social issues like LGBTQ in the country, I in my little town, there's probably 7 or 8 people that fly the LGBTQ flag or the poly flag. So it's like it's on that social issue, they're not Republican and a red, and on everything else they are. So it's kind of weird. Hey, cranky elder god, I figure you were busy, eating brains or something, doing what elder gods do. I don't question what you do. So, Orbits can whistle Dixie. Yes, she can. Argentina, Russia. There's been a good political science argument that Trump is just doing what Putin did, So I've seen that with some political scientists talking about that particular issue. Is that his tactics are very similar for some reason. So, let's see. West melting due to spring heat. Everything else is great. Yeah, no, the weather here in Michigan has just been odd. I think it was Anne Marie was asking me about what was happening because she lives in Grand Rapids and I live north of her about an hour on the freeway. And we had some rain. It's a weird week that's up in front of us because it's supposed to get into like after a week of 70s and 80s and stuff, it's dropping back down into the 50s with the cold weather at 39. I broke up my jacket again, to go to work. So, brains are good, but sometimes I'm in the mood for a calzone and a beer. Okay, fair enough. I can see the correlation. So, but yeah, it's like it, but the weather has been just, yeah, it's bipolar. Fair assessment, Anne Marie. Especially in the spring and fall, like you never, there's an old joke, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. I hear that all the time. I got to work yesterday, and the boss basically said, "Well, how'd you enjoy your summer, folks?" It's like May, and we still have summer to go. But it's like I've seen summers be like that, where they were like, it would very rarely give above 80, and at night it would be in the 40s all summer long, which is comfortable weather for a lot of us. But it's like it's you know yeah, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So, so yeah, India weather, the whole Midwest tends to be like that, especially around the lakes. The Great Lakes screw everything up as far as weather. Here on the western side of the lower peninsula of Michigan, we get so much snow because of it. Yeah, you ended up in a cabin in Wisconsin. I can see that. That's fair. But Michigan, every Michigander, I swear, has a cabin they can go to. So it's like a real weekend thing in the summer. Just get up and leave your house and go to some cabin in the woods somewhere. So, yeah, it's pretty normal. And their own mothers can put up with them for more than that. You can change the nationality. Okay, fair enough. They're born early because their mothers can't even put up with them. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious too. What part of Michigan did you grow up in, Kyle? I think you said it before, but I can't remember. But yeah, I've been in Western Michigan in my little town for most of my life. It's a beautiful place to live. I can literally drive an hour from here and be on the ridge line. That's one of the tallest areas in Michigan. I can see the forest stretch out in front of me, and it's nice. So, Fort Wayne. Oh, North Branch. I know where that is. I've been there. Been there one time in my life. That's the thing about growing up in a tourist state. Like, there's a lot of tourism in the summer in Michigan, and every town has its own tourist trap. So you go to a lot of them as a native. You just like, oh, what is their little shtick? Okay, and you go find it there. American Eastern Woodland is one places I live. I am thankful to have spent most of my life here. Yes, I honestly, dude, I would miss the woods and the small lakes, and every time I've moved out of this environment, it has not been good for me. So, um, yeah, so it. I'm fully with you there, Ronald. I don't know what to do without woods. I've got to have it, and just walking in the trees and stuff is very therapeutic for me. So I had a cousin in the Coast Guard a long time ago. But yeah, cousin in the Coast Guard. My father was in the Navy for a while, and he was in the Army National Guard. My grandfather flew B-17s in World War II, and I'm just a guy. The springtime is hot. The rest is cool at night and moderate in the daytime. See, that's the thing. Jack. This is why I would love to work, like live on a certain level in the mountains, because there's certain places in the world where you live in a certain level in the mountains and the temperature is consistent. Okay, it's that nice, jacket weather, that I can live with, so. Oh, Wyomingite. Very few people can say that. Like the smallest population in the United States, I think. No, of the United States, it's the smallest when a population, as I recall. So very few people can say that. You're a very elite crowd there. Oh, Coast Guard. Oh, are you going to publish that book? Because I would be interested. Because the Coast Guard, my friend is a Navy guy, and he shits on the Coast Guard all the time. Pretend Navy, all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but they do jobs that you guys don't do. So, like, I don't see the Navy out there doing the regular police work of keeping the coast secure. You get called for the big shit. So they're doing the real work. And he gets pissed when I say that. Mild high desert climate. Okay, yeah, I can see that. I might be comfortable in that. Okay, KPD in a couple of months. All right. Let me know when it comes out, because I would love to read it. That kind of history intrigues me, like where you get off the beat. Everybody writes about the big wars and all that crap, and nobody like writes about different aspects of stuff like that. So you're thinking of doing a cookbook for sensory disability. Yeah, because you have one, right? You can't smell or taste, right? As I recall. Yeah, that would be an interesting cookbook. I mean, I don't know. I think somebody mentioned that I'd be very fearful of losing my sense of smell, because it's often my test of, oh, yeah, I'm not going to eat that. But yeah, I mean, actually, I think that's an absolutely fabulous idea, because I'm sure you're not the only one. So. I wish they would have made a movie of what goes on in Wyoming. Neo-Nazis have been entrenched here since World War II. I can buy that. I've been out west several times. I've been to Montana. I was a long time in North Dakota and South Dakota. The one thing that struck me about people out west of the Mississippi is, because you have so few people, it's like only 25% of the population of the United States lives west of the Mississippi. So, the rest of it's east of the Mississippi. So it's like there's a freedom to be whatever the hell you want to be still. And on the one hand, I can applaud that. On the other hand, it seems that people try to be free to be assholes. So it's like, that's one of my problems with it. Oh, has no sense of smell, but is an excellent cook. Okay. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Brent has always fascinated me, because I think he has the same problem, and he's just doing a cookbook with people for that disability. I would find fascinating, because it's like there's all kinds of sensory deprivations and things. Like, as somebody who's hypersensitive to smell, there's a lot of things I won't eat, because if I get a whiff of them, it'll make me nauseous. So that cookbook needs to be written too. So, well, folks, I do have to pack it in. I do have to get ready for work. 2 days down, 3 days to go. I will probably see all of you Thursday for a deconversion hangout, where, today we only had one theist visit, and not to apologize, and I appreciate the apology. But they'll probably try to break in. They always do. But thanks everybody for stopping by. I do appreciate all of you. Remember the goal in chat. I think we got 2. So we're down to like 8 for the hat reveal on Saturday and 13 and for me doing the thing. So, Earl's telling me to wait. You have more artwork for me, Earl? Because I got a couple of them queued up. In fact, I should probably do that. You guys might get lucky and get some artwork today. Oh, yep, there is one. Oh. Oh my goodness. Hold on, I gotta save this and show it. Oh my goodness. All right. Hold on, everybody. I have some lovely, lovely work from Earl, and I'm going to open it up right now. Oh, this is beautiful. It's beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Oh my goodness. Wow. The marinara sauce is great. I saw you gave me the 2 characters that I knew was going to be in it, and and I've been fascinatingly waiting to see what you were going to do with the 2 characters and put them together, and this is hilarious. The papal bowls. Yeah, they're in the background. Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. Yeah, there's so much imagery in here that's just hilarious. It's just funny. Does a rabbit have a unique butt print? Oh, Fangs is up to his normal mischief again. He gets surprised that he gets caught being a trickster god. He's not a very good trickster god, I guess we could say. He always gets caught, but oh my gosh. Well, let's see. It looks like it's a hit. Cranky's smiling. Coyote's loving it. The Weedafix. Oh, Katie loves it. It's an angry tomato, yes. Yes, it is. We got paper bowls in the background. Oh my gosh, very ecumenical. Okay, there we go. Oh, yep, butt prints of rabbits. Shouldn't that be the baby cheeses on the cross, though? Maybe, I don't know. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, it's good stuff, Earl. I'm glad for Earl because this allows me to change things every once in a while on Facebook too. So I've kept the Mormonians. Finally got them up there, but I'll wait on this one a little bit longer. But this is hilarious. I knew you were gonna, do the fangs being discovered by the Pope kind of thing, but this is just more than I was expecting, and it's funny. I mean, I'm not a former Catholic, and I'm sure former Catholics will probably have this. This is sacrilegious. Never had so much sympathy for a breadstick. Yeah, well, the breadstick's corrupted. Okay, it's been corrupted by religion, and Fangs has to remove that. So, and apparently, you need marinara sauce to do that. So, yeah, I use Fangs to illustrate the absurdity of religion all the time because I just made that up, and that's what most religions do is just make shit up. So, It's hysterical. Yeah, some of you I figured would do that, but you kept reading it as marijuana, not marinara. Screaming groceries cracks you up. It cracks me up too. I just think it's funny. But yeah, it's like I've said, once again, my expectations have been exceeded. So head pats all around, Earl. Um, so yeah, but yeah, the breadstick, has to go through his treatment. So, oh my gosh. Yes, Earl loves the head pats. By the way, she does stuff and we give her head pats and she loves it. So, but yeah, this is great. And I know we have yeah, we have this as our emoji from this. I haven't done it yet, but I think this might become an emoji as well. So we'll have that as well. You sent me the new Pope too. Okay, cool. All right. Yep. Yeah, I got the new one. So part of your subconscious that you never knew you had. It's kind of what art's designed to do, is pull that stuff out. So let us pray for the forgiveness of the vampire bunny. Yes, he is. He's only vampiric to vegetables. He doesn't really do blood. So we're trying to keep. Christianity is so much of a blood religion. We figure they've cornered the market on that. So um, we're going vegetables instead. So yeah, dude. Earl's artwork will do that to you. It'll pull parts of your subconscious you never knew you had. I've done the origin story of Fangs, and Cranky added the aspect of that Fangs is the offspring of Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe in some way, that she uses her neck in a unique way. And that's caused a theological schism. So of the origins of Fangs. So I mean, I use this as it all started with a joke because B.S. Lewis. I've had it happen to me with the closed captioning where they translate Rabyd Atheist into Rabbit Atheist, and then B.S. Lewis took that and I did an interview on his channel, and his thumbnail was hilarious because he had the tricks rabbit. No, I said Rabid Atheist, not Rabbit Atheist. And ever since then, we've been running with this, and it's just been hilarious. And an entire mythology has been developed based on it. And we can at least document all the stuff with our mythology, unlike some other religions I would hesitate to mention. I think he got his face perfect. Fang should always have this oops, I got caught thing when the religion catches him doing his thing. He should always have that, oh crap, I got to drop this and run kind of thing. And I think he got it. I think he got it. Fangs has many incarnations. That's why I let Earl experiment with how Fangs looks, because he can change his appearance into anybody he wishes. So he prefers black with fangs and red eyes, but that's his normal form. So, well, there's that. Kind of. Could be. Why not? Yes, marinara becomes the true blood of the Savior, yes. It's really all about tomatoes. So, yes, and Earl has a blog that she writes on whenever she does artwork. She also writes about it, and if you want some of the better stories of it, it's great. It's great. It's great stuff. So make sure you click on her links in YouTube to do that. She's become one of my favorite artists. So black cows are witnesses. Well, they're the papal bulls. So. Yes, this is one of her many incarnations of Fangs, and The first one she did is one of our emojis, and then she did several others that have become emojis. We're going to keep working on that. Right now, I have enough members to have, I think, 13 emojis, and I only have 9 or so. And I'm going to expand that out. So, yes, the next one is going to be Pentecostal. Yes, I think we voted on that, and we interrupted to do Catholic because of the new Pope. We all agreed that the community agreed that we should go with Catholic because of the new Pope. So, yeah. Which burning bush are we talking about? We had discussions earlier about you should see proper experts for burning questions. So, which burning bush are we dealing with here? Because there's a lot of ways to interpret that, Rimmer. I mean, Doug, Lisa, etc. Yes. I it's a rabbit, so burning. Well, I mean, we could do Fangs, and I'm sure there's part of his history where he had these epic battles with Yahweh, and so yeah, the burning bush might be appropriate. So, yeah, you might see the papal bull crap. Yes, it's there. If you look closely. See, this is why I love your artwork, Earl. There's so much things, like you put a lot of symbolism in it yourself, and you know what that is. But then other people, they come up with shit you didn't even come up with. He's brought down to the realm via lightning. Okay, fair. Part of the origin story, canonized. Okay, officially canonized. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta put on the hat to do that. So we're gonna officially canonize the fact that Fangs was brought down into this realm via lightning. There we go. Stated fully. So there we go. That's official canon now. See how easy that is? Oh my goodness. I have so much fun on this channel. Makes the bush burning. Okay. Oh boy. Neither do I walk through the valley of the shadow of Fang. Yes. We've done a lot of that stuff. So Fangs is our resident demigod deity, and I use him, her, whatever, to illustrate a lot. I guess you picture Fangs as whatever gender you are. So you're allowed to do that. So, and besides, Fangs is truly transformative, can appear as any rabbit. So blessed be Fangs. He nibbled for our sins with bright sun and delivered us from corrupted vegetables. May he forever nibble at your heart and grant you everlasting whiskers or wisdom. Yes. All right. Well, I do have to run. I've stayed a little bit longer than I intended because of the artwork. So thank you everyone for stopping by. I appreciate all of you. We'll next be streaming on Thursday. I'm rewriting a script, so I'm hopefully going to have a video out on Friday at some point, but I'm earnestly working on that, trying to get videos as part of my stuff. So don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our benevolent dictator. Yes. I am the only true prophet of Fangs. So nom 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 and all that, folks. I appreciate all of you. You guys have been great today. Great stream. Enjoyed it immensely, and not just all the discussion topics were great. You guys are awesome. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate all of you. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around, and then it's over. So you want to take all your time, your money, your opportunities, and spend them on yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. And as always, folks, thanks for stopping by, and I will catch you next time.